With comics like The Walking Dead and Spawn, Image Comics has a nice big handful of absolutely awful ways to bite the dust in their library.
And you guys can't seem to get enough of them. So today on Top 10 Nerd, it's part 2 of the top 10 worst ways to die in Image Comics. I'm Amanda McKnight.
And I'm Adam Andrews. Let us know some of your favorite Image Comics moments in the comments down below, and let's jump in. Coming in at number 10, it's the Medic. This one came out of nowhere, for me at least. In the opening moments of issue 12 of Saga, we are on a battlefield between the Wings and the Horns, with Prince Robot IV, who was just taken a hit, and a medic is called over. A medic who basically looks like an anthropomorphic mouse. That doesn't really matter. Basically, the medic saves Prince Robot and tells him about how he supports the Wings since they saved his home planet, and how he's serving as a medic to get his degree. Nice. When all of a sudden some gas-like spell is used by the enemy, which seems to be against the rules of engagement. While everyone else puts on their gas masks, it turns out the medic wasn't ever given one. This medic looks around in a panic, realizing and asking if he is going to pass away, and within moments he puffs up and gets all deformed, and then he just straight up pops in an explosion of gore. Sad.
Number 9, Mermaids. To some, this might actually sound like a pleasant way to go, because I mean, mermaids. But to those who know mermaids from the pages of Black Cloak, not so much. The mermaids in this world are known for being deadly and dangerous beasts, although some do more think of them as misunderstood, which honestly there's kind of some points to that, but I digress. Mermaids here tend to, eat their victims. I don't know about you, but for me the thought of being devoured alive or even attacked underwater is horrifying. Add in the fact that when mermaids get angry or hungry they look like this, and yeah, I would not want to meet my end this way. Although I will say at least you seem to get to experience a sense of euphoria before you die, as their song, or rather their speech, tends to hypnotize you and make you kind of hallucinate that everything is light and beautiful and great. Although in a way, that actually might make your death even more horrific here when you think about it.
Coming in at number 8, it's the Blood Transfusion. Phil Dirt was one of Savage Dragon's first friends when he joined the Chicago Police Department, and he also developed a crush on the hero. His homosexuality was something that made Phil's partner on the force, Howard Neisman, uncomfortable. Howard was pretty bigoted, but despite that, they still would put their personal differences aside and were loyal to one another as police officers and partners. This loyalty was shown when Phil was mauled by the shark man known as Mako, who took a big chunk out of the guy. If that wasn't bad enough, Phil also discovered that he was infected with AIDS, and he asked Howard for help. Howard went to Dragon asking him to give a blood transfusion to Phil to try and save his life. The transfusion cured Phil and even regenerated the wounds that he received, but it also mutated Phil, and Dragon felt something might possibly go wrong, and unfortunately, he was right. The unstable nature of Dragon's blood caused Phil to eventually explode during the ride to the hospital, covering Howard and his truck with anything that may have been inside poor old Phil here.
Number 7, Down with the Ship. I don't know how the captain really ended up expiring in the first issue of The Forge. There's a lot here that we don't quite fully understand yet because, you know, it's the first issue. But that's part of the fun with this story. This world that we enter in this action-packed, bug-stomping, gritty, futuristic space adventure is vast, as is highlighted by the pages of text at the end, expanding upon some of the lore that's hinted at in the issue, touching on the politics, as well as literally mapping out the empire that we are thrown into here. What I do know is that however the captain went, I wouldn't want to go that way. In this first issue of The Forge, we are introduced to an elite team of fighters who are part of a crew type known for getting the impossible done. This kind of crew is known as the Forged. They are sent on a suspiciously simple mission to retrieve a black box from an abandoned wreck on a distant and deadly world. However, before they're deployed, a space witch known as a Cassandra in this series aboard the massive ship seems to be interested in tweaking some of the mission's parameters and conditions. As soon as they deploy, she heads to the bridge to, I don't know, transform and kill everyone? That seems like what's happening here. I'm not really sure what's happening here, but it does not look good as the entire massive ship crashes down towards the planet that our Forged are deployed to. Also, I think there's like 90,000 people on that ship, so that's pretty crazy. Is this woman a Cassandra? Is she something else? What's happening here? I don't know, but it's awful.
Coming in at number 6, it's Billy Kincaid. Billy Kincaid, first introduced in issue 5 of the Spawn comic book series, is an incredibly deranged and disgusting killer. Originally sentenced to 22 years in prison for taking the life of someone way too young, his good behavior coupled with his attorney, and a ridiculous positive psychiatric evaluation saw Kincaid gain early parole after only 6 years. Now before his passing and return as Spawn, Al Simmons had been hired as an assassin to take out Kincaid. However, he arrived just as the cops had caught this man. Al learned that Kincaid's real victim count is all the way up at 27, but with no solid evidence and someone covering Kincaid's tracks, he was never caught for those crimes. Now, 6 years later and out of prison, Billy Kincaid went right back to his old habits. Picking up his occupation as Mr. Chill E, the ice cream man, he ends up taking the life of another innocent soul. Spawn, finding out Kincaid has been freed, is able to track Kincaid down, and the next time we see Billy, he is chained up in Detective Sam Burke's office, impaled with popsicle sticks and an ice cream scoop with a popsicle shoved in his no longer moving mouth. A note Spawn apparently attached to this body reads, "Boys scream and girls screamed, so I made him scream and scream and scream," and that is horrifying, but good riddance.
Number 5, cut short. I don't know how else to describe for the title here for this point that it would be allowed on this platform. So we're just going to take inspiration straight from the issue where the creep narrates asking, "Scared of what, Nate? Your sentence was cut short. Just like your life." I don't know if that's what the creep, this creep probably does not sound like that. This demise comes to us from issue number 1 of Creepshow and the first story within it, Take 1. This is like the first few pages, friends, of this issue. Nate is one of the hooligans we meet who, with his friends or his, I don't know, honestly they seem like a group of little criminals, ventures to take more than one candy from a bowl placed out on Halloween, seemingly by a dead man, Mr. Xander. Well, it turns out that for a corpse, Mr. Xander is actually pretty lively, and he doesn't take too well to people taking more than their fair share of candy. He rushes Nate and his friend from behind, pushing Nate's face into the sewer grate and stomps on him.
Number 4, the Governor. The Governor is not someone that you find yourself caring for. Honestly, he is really the first major human antagonist that the group faces in The Walking Dead. Leading his own group or community called Woodbury, at first the Governor seems like a decent dude, for about 5 minutes before he threatens to feed Rick, Glenn, and Michonne to walkers and then cuts off Rick's hand. He ends up keeping the 3 captive and treating Michonne the worst of the bunch. When she finally escapes, she comes back for some pretty serious revenge. After knocking Mr. Governor unconscious, Michonne strips him down to his skivvies, drills through his shoulder blades, does unspeakable things to his downstairs situation, shoves a spoon where the sun don't shine, completely takes out his left eye, nearly severs an artery, pulls off his fingernails, and completely cuts off his right arm. Nice. Somehow though, the Governor actually survives this, leading to an incredibly savage attack on the prison where the group of survivors are staying. Now during this attack, being completely bloodthirsty, he forces members of his community to attack, which results in the horrible passing of Lori and Judith, at which point the Governor's own people turn on him, blasting through the back of his head and kicking him into a horde of zombies like that. Just like that.
Number 3, Devil's Due. One of the most haunting moments from the Dark Ride series still comes from its very first issue for me. This comic has stuck with me mentally from the beginning, and this moment is a big part of the reason I think why that happened. In the very first issue, we meet our seeming protagonist for the series, Owen Seasons. However, before the issue is even fully over, Owen's fate is sealed and he is seemingly killed. Initially, I simply thought he was going to have some kind of horrific and mysterious experience, go missing for a while, but he would return, maybe changed, but no, he literally just ends up being forced onto a ride known as Devil's Due and is roasted to a crisp while being torn limb from limb by what I can only describe as demon claws and teeth. Following this, it's later suggested that Owen is haunting the park and that his corpse is used as adornment for the ride. The latter is actually revealed when his sister, an investigative journalist, infiltrates the park in search of him and finds his corpse while exploring after hours.
Coming in at number 2, it's the Guardians of the Globe. One of the best moments in Invincible, or the worst I guess, both in the comic and the show, happens really early on. After becoming comfortable with the good guys in the story, mainly Mark Grayson and his family, including his dad Omni-Man, the strongest superhero on Earth, we pick up in issue 7, or in the final moments of episode 1 of the show, being introduced to each member of Earth's premier superhero team, the Guardians of the Globe. War Woman, Darkwing, Red Rush, Aquarius, Martian Man, Green Ghost, and the Immortal were all given backstories and character development, getting you into this powerful group of heroes, and in a fraction of that time, you watch them get absolutely decimated by Omni-Man himself. In the comics, this is carried out over 2 pages. We see eyes popped out, necks turned completely around, heads removed from shoulders, and torsos turned into Swiss cheese. But in the show, this plays out in under 3 minutes. Red Rush gets his head crushed. That's a good rhyme. Darkwing is splattered on the floor, Green Ghost loses their face and is used as a shield, Aquarius gets obliterated, War Woman gets her head spun around, Martian Man has his heart removed, and the Immortal becomes a head shorter.
Number 1. Munch Munch Munch. This fearsome fate caused some of the most recoiling I've done in some time during a read-through of a comic. We are talking about when YouTuber Theo got in a little too deep when it came to his investigation into the going-ons and recent tragedy at Devilland. In issue number 4 of Dark Ride, Theo is drawn in by a mysterious text message promising to reveal the secrets of Devil's Land and the Dante family who created it. He heads over for what he hopes will be an insightful meeting, but instead gets his head literally munched by one of the suits. Goodness, remind me to never traverse the multiple worlds that make up Image Comics.
Noted. That's about it though.
Stay nerdy.
Bye.